Tennessee Life is sponsored by
Mid-South Sewing and Fabric has what you need for your creative adventure. If it's sewing, embroidery, or vinyl projects you need for a home business, Etsy, Pinterest, and your family, we have it. Mid-South Sewing sells Brothers Sewing and Embroidery machines and the latest scan and cut crafting machine. Mid-South Sewing and Fabric in the Gallery Shopping Center.
Tennessee Life is also brought to you by Next to New, an upscale consignment shop serving Knoxville. nexttoknox.com. And by The Flower Pot, for over 100 years, offering flowers and same-day delivery with 2 convenient Knoxville locations. knoxvilleflowerpot.com. And by viewers like you. Thank you. Coming up on this edition of Tennessee Life, a special tribute to Vietnam veterans. We joined more than 130 servicemen and women as they boarded a flight organized by Honor Air Knoxville. These volunteer state veterans spent an entire day in Washington, D.C. and received a hero's welcome when they arrived back home. A missing piece for many of them.
So much of the time when we get back to Knoxville, I have gentlemen, men and women, come up to me and say, I now know that I'm home.
Visiting the Vietnam Veterans Memorial Wall was especially meaningful for this group. They discussed what it means to them personally, including Philip Holt, who flew 100 missions over North Vietnam during his service.
I think most of the people who go there and they have a reaction, they come back thinking, why did those people die and not me? And that's the common reaction that you have.
Ever wonder how to say thank you to a veteran? The Quilts of Valor group does it with handcrafted gifts of comfort.
To me, it's like, we should say thank you to these service members and veterans because they're kind of like our guards. They take care of us, and that's the least we can do is say thank you. And doing these patriotic quilts and awarding Quilts of Valor is wonderful.
Those stories next on Tennessee Life.
Thanks for joining us for this episode of Tennessee Life, where we are paying a special tribute to our Vietnam veterans. Recently, a group of servicemen and women from Tennessee all traveled together to our nation's capital, thanks to Honor Air Knoxville. The organization honors veterans by flying them to Washington, D.C. Our crew was there for the journey as they visited the Vietnam Veterans Memorial Wall, and I had the honor of serving as a volunteer escort to 4 veterans on the trip. I spoke with Honor Air Knoxville founder Eddie Mannis about what motivated him to start the organization.
The mission of Honor Air Knoxville is to fly as many veterans as we can from World War II, Korea, and Vietnam to visit the memorials that have been built in their honor.
What was your inspiration to establish Honor Air?
It goes back to 2007. I have a friend in Hendersonville, North Carolina, and he's in the dry cleaning business. And so we were good friends, and he called me, and I knew that his father had passed away, and he was cleaning out his father's belongings one day and realized that his father had given a lot of money to help build the memorial, but was never able to see it. And Jeff really wanted to make it his mission that no other World War II veteran would ever not have the opportunity to see the memorial. In the spring of 2007, I went over. I was served as an escort for 3 wonderful gentlemen. One was a POW in World War II. And I was so moved by my experience that day. As I was coming back across the mountain, I thought, this is something we really want to do in Knoxville. We came back, did some planning with our volunteer team, put a volunteer team together, and took our first flight in October of 2007. And we have been honored to fly over, I think the number is 32 or 3,300 total veterans.
Can you tell us some of the preparation, all the details that it takes to take these flights now?
Yeah, we start with an application process for all veterans. So they complete the application, we screen the veterans, and we always give priority, obviously, to World War II veterans. And so we've had to prioritize the program with World War II, Korea, and Vietnam, and we really try to give priority after World War II to veterans who actually were in combat. I really like to say that we take no veteran left behind. If your doctor says you can go, there's no limitation that will keep us from taking you. We have taken literally double amputees, people that were confined to wheelchairs totally. That is not a problem for us. That's who we serve. that's who we'll continue to serve. So that process, we really have 2 or 3 people that work year-round on this program, putting it together, working the list, putting the veterans on flights, taking them off flights for whatever reason, moving them to another flight. So we have a great team that really is committed to doing all of those things and working year-round for the program.
Tell us a little bit more about why you wanted to specially honor Vietnam veterans on this trip.
All wars are important. I think honoring all veterans is important. But what I've really come to learn with Vietnam is the depth of their stories, and more importantly, and how we, I think, really make an impact in the life of Vietnam veterans, is their interaction, their welcome into DC when we land in Washington National Airport, the greeting there that they have coming into the nation's capital, and then in every monument, wherever they go, someone is wanting to shake their hand and thank them for their service. Coming back into Knoxville, they're greeted to over 1,000 people there, thanking them for their service. That is something they never got.
Describe that day.
We're told that we run better than any military organization that our veterans have ever been in, because we have an itinerary, and then we do have police escort for the day. Otherwise, we would not be able to do what we do. And so then it's Air Force Memorial, and then we go to Vietnam, Korea. Then we leave there, go to World War II. One more. We drive by the Navy Memorial and do a drive by the Capitol and the White House. And then we're on to Arlington National Cemetery for the changing of the guard. Then we go to Iwo Jima, and then we're back to the airport. So that is an action-packed day, and we don't let any grass grow under our feet.
So when you travel in Washington, you are embraced, and they really make it work and make all of it fall in place for you.
It's nothing for us to get to a memorial, literally, on every flight it happens, and have an honor guard there, or have school kids there lined up for our veterans to walk through. Lots of times our congressmen and senators are there to greet them. So the fanfare and the welcome into these memorials is really, really what they are really moved by more than anything else. But one of the big parts of the day that is not in that part of the logistic is we do mail call. About 45 minutes out of Knoxville, we solicit letters from their family members, unbeknownst to them. They have no idea that we're doing this. And it's amazing. We, not only from their family members, but we also have school kids that write letters and do cards. But it is a big part of the program, and I think it's healing for the families as well as for the veterans.
Describe the homecoming when you return back to Knoxville. Tell me about how that happens and the participation in it.
Our first flight, when we came back into Knoxville, we probably had 75 people. We've really tried to promote that. If you stay in Knoxville and you can't fly with the program, it's a way to play a major part. Again, if you ask these men and women that travel with us, that's the last thing they remember is that homecoming. And really, that's what they'll tell you first. The homecoming back into Knoxville, it's getting upwards of being over 1,000 people there. It's gotten where now they line up from security all the way down by the fountain, all the way out to the street, past the escalators of the airport in Knoxville. I hope that crowd never diminishes. I have seen kids come to every welcome back into Knoxville since 2007. And they started when they were, 4 and 5 years old. And obviously now they're 14 or 15 and they're still coming. I think that's really the most moving. Their families are there. They have signs. It's just a reunion. It truly is a homecoming.
I had the opportunity to volunteer for the Vietnam flight, and it meant so much to me, especially because my husband served in Vietnam. And I know the treatment that he received. He was drafted to do a job.
Sure.
And he did his job. Right. And to see that and to see the rewards that Vietnam veterans are now receiving is so touching to the heart. But also being in public television, every story of every veteran means so much. And to be able to do this is so commendable that what Honor Air does. How important are the volunteers to the success of this?
We couldn't do it without volunteer escorts, and that's the ones that really fly. And volunteer escorts do pay their own way. There's a minimum $500 contribution. Every dollar that we raise goes to the transportation of veterans. But we could not do it without them, because it would be hard if we had to depend on just the volunteer team that we have to check off the checklist and make sure we have everybody with us.
So tell me a little bit more about the connections that you see that veterans make with each other. Veterans, they probably don't know, but the connections that they make and stay in place from participating in this.
With veterans, you may not even know the veteran you're flying beside, but there is a common bond. They are brothers. It is a brotherhood, because they can relate to each other, so they know what's going on with each other. The relationship that veterans have with their volunteer escorts, in some cases, their volunteer escorts could be total strangers, but the bond that they have with their volunteer escorts. We've had veterans, especially from World War II, that really had no family members left. And the volunteer escorts have almost become their new family.
What do you see for the future and seeing this continue?
We will continue this program as long as the community will support it, and as long as the community wants us to continue. And I want to be able to serve every Vietnam veteran that is out there. And then once we get that done, we'll look at whatever the next war is, and we will certainly consider serving future wars and future flights.
If someone is interested in being on one of the Honor Air flights, how do they get that process started?
All they have to do is go to our website. They can visit any Prestige location, get an application. So those are the two places you can get applications. Complete the application and get it to us, and we'll take care of the rest.
Eddie Mannis, thank you for the dedication to our veterans and for Honor Air.
It's a pleasure for us to do it, Vicki. Thank you.
Later on Tennessee Life, hand-sewn gifts to say thank you from Quilts of Valor. But next, one veteran's story of what it means to travel to the Vietnam Memorial Wall and how coming home this time around means so much.
Air Force veteran Philip Hope was on Honor Air Flight 24. He was among a group of high school classmates who all made the trip together. They left a special memorial at the wall for a classmate who died while serving in Vietnam. Lieutenant Colonel Hope also shared stories of flying more than 100 missions over North Vietnam.
First time you go, you think you're just going to see a wall. But what happens is you get there and you realize there's over 58,000 names on that wall, and it gets very emotional. Most of the people who go there, they come back thinking, why did those people die and not me? And that's the common reaction that you have. I'm Phil Holt. I'm a retired lieutenant colonel from the United States Air Force, and I was in the Air Force for 27 years. Well, I always wanted to be an astronaut. I never reached that goal, but I knew to be an astronaut you had to be a pilot. I served in Vietnam from mid-1972 until about January 1973. I was assigned to the 31st TAC Fighter Wing at Homestead Air Force Base. To me, it was just like a job. You were assigned to fly a particular airplane. You did that job along with your other pilots that were in your unit. So it became more of an occupation rather than adventure per se. On several missions, maybe that you're not on, but your other squadron mates were flying, some of them did not come back. They were shot down. Some of them were captured and spent time in the Hanoi Hilton. In fact, I have a pilot training classmate of mine that was shot down on a mission, and he spent 18 months in the Hanoi Hilton. We're going to go on an on-air flight, and we have 13 classmates who are going to go as a group to honor a classmate of ours who died in Vietnam. His name is Tommy McCarter. He was a Navy corpsman. What happened was there was a Marine unit that had been in contact with North Vietnamese forces, had a big firefight, and a lot of those died before the rest of them got out of the firefight. About a week later, the unit that he was assigned to, the Marine unit, went back into that area to recover the bodies. While they were there, I think they were there on their third day, they were attacked. And then he was killed during that attack. We have created a shadow box for Tommy McCarter, and it's got a high school letter in it and his picture. And the explanation of how he met his death, and we're going to leave that at the wall as a recognition of Tommy's service over there. I'm glad that we have the chance with Honor Air to do this together, because if we didn't have these Honor Air flights, I think it would be very hard as a group to get together and then go up there and do this. Well, I remember one mission, it was in December 1972, and we were doing what they call Operation Linebacker 2, and it was bombing North Vietnam with B-52 bombers. And we are assigned to escort them, mainly to protect them against any North Vietnamese aircraft coming up, trying to come up and shoot them down. But we couldn't protect them from the surface-to-air missile. I remember on one mission, we were escorting the B-52s in there, and there was a surface-to-air missile. It hit a B-52 that I was escorting, and when it hit, the wings of the B-52 just folded up, and the aircraft just fell. And that was just shocking to see that. One time I got hit with an anti-aircraft fire in my right engine. I lost the engine and basically lost the aircraft, and had to eject from the aircraft in layoffs. Well, I got picked up by a Marine Corps rescue helicopter, and what was interesting is you don't realize the adrenaline that you're going through at the time. Once I got on the rescue helicopter, I just collapsed. I was just out of energy. And so they flew us back to Thailand, and then actually I flew the next day. The Air Force, their theory is they want you back in the air. They don't want you to sit around and think about what happened. Well, on this particular mission where I got shot down, there were two South Vietnamese airmen that were shot down in an aircraft. Then two Marines went up there to take a look to see what was going on. They got shot down. So there were two South Vietnamese and two U.S. Marines there on the ground. And the helicopters were trying to get in there to rescue them, but they couldn't because there was a truck on the Ho Chi Minh Trail, a North Vietnamese truck that had an anti-aircraft gun on the back of it. That was creating havoc, and so they called us in there to do some strafing to try to get rid of the anti-aircraft gun. And then that was the particular gun that the shell went into my right engine. Because of that, I was awarded the Vietnamese Gallantry Cross with a V device, which means valor. During my service in Vietnam, I had 100 missions. Normally, the way that worked was after you completed your 100 missions, then you went home. I always carried an American flag with me in my flight suit. And so as I was getting out of the aircraft, I had the American flag around my neck. And they normally spray you with champagne as you come down the ladder out of the aircraft. And then you know that you're going home, and in a couple of days later, I was on my way home. Well, it's going to be pretty humbling because of the reception that we'll get that we never got. I think that's very good. I think with the World War II veterans, it was a lot different because they did receive a very good homecoming. For Korean and probably Vietnam veterans, it was a lot different because when you came back, the country didn't really, that's the way we felt, didn't accept us. But I think coming back now to the on-air flight will be very, it's almost like a closure thing. Everyone has a story. We all need to hear that.
If you aren't sure how to express thanks to someone touched by war, a handmade gift may be just what they need. The members of the Quilts of Valor sewing group put love and care into each stitch before presenting an honored veteran with their quilt.
What I love about quilting is the creativity. Some people are artists, and probably for a lot of us that do quilting, that's where our creativity lies. It may be in just putting the different colors together. It may be coming up with your own design, and that's what I love. Well, my name is Arliss Barber, and I live here in Tellico Village, and I am the coordinator for our Village Quilters Guild's Quilt of Valor group. Quilt of Valor is a one-time award. We call it a civilian award for our service members and our veterans that we do for them. And it's a patriotic quilt, and it's made by one or many hands. And I am lucky enough to be the coordinator for that, and also to do a lot of the awards when we give the quilts to the veterans, because it's meant to convey that gratitude that we have for them, given their time in service for us. We do thank you very, very much.
The quilt is just beautiful. Rose.
Our guild is a registered group member of the Quilts of Valor Foundation, which is the overriding organization. The Quilt of Valor Foundation was actually founded in 2003 by Catherine Roberts. Her son was called to go to Iraq, and she just felt called to do something. It's like, I have to do something for these people that are coming back. So the very first official Quilt of Valor was given in November of 2003. And she thought, well, I want to expand this. So her thought was to get, quilters who did the piecing together with the people who did the decorative top stitching on the quilt. Let's get them together and see what we can do. Well, she did that, and it started growing and growing. There are many, many groups just like us. We are not the only one here in the area. We're just one of many. So there are, maybe a group down in Madisonville, there's one in Knoxville, there's one in Crossville. A lot of us have some connection to the military in some way. Our fathers, our uncles, our brothers, sons or daughters may be in the service, and you kind of have that connection. And you know what it's like for a lot of them, to be thanked. And that's what this is. It's I think, a perfect way to be able to say thank you to a veteran, because we're adding something tangible as well as our words of thanks to be able to award them a quilt.
And I love how the stars are just different colors, and it seems like they just pop. Yeah.
It's really important to me to do something to honor our veterans. It's something they can wrap themselves up in. And it's like you're giving them a hug, but it's a hug that stays with them because they have this. And it's individualized. Like, I happen to know the person this is going to, so it's very special to me.
These are not my words. I got them from some of our foundation people, but what we like to say is that a quilt obviously is made in 3 layers, and the quilt top, with all of the colors and shapes, kind of represents all of us as people and individuals. And the middle batting layer, that's the warmth. We hope that it would give warmth and comfort to the recipient. And the back of the quilt, which is the backing, is the strongest part of the quilt. Well, that represents the strength of the veteran or service member while they were in service, and also the support that they got from their family and friends. So what better way can you give something to someone, to give thanks, and have them have that tangible thing to take away? Gosh, when we award a quilt to a veteran or service member, it's very rewarding. I have found this experience to be that way, and it's emotional. I mean, even thinking about it, I'm getting a little emotional, but, and every award is different.
I was really impressed and touched by the presentation, and it's a beautiful piece of art. Well, it does keep you warm. I don't use it that way. I have it displayed on the wall, but it's nice to know I could wrap up in it if I wanted to, because there's a lot of thought that went behind it and a lot of work that went behind it, and those feelings and those thoughts are evident every time I look at it. I could give it to them, but I'll dedicate it to all the guys who didn't come back. Yeah. 58,000 people, you gotta remember that.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Many, many.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
We enjoy quilting, so what better way can you do, use your quilting ability other than to put it into something so wonderful to be able to give to a veteran or a service member. To me, it's like, we should say thank you to these service members and veterans, because they're kind of like our guards. You know, they take care of us, and that's the least we can do is say thank you. And doing these patriotic quilts and awarding Quilts of Valor is wonderful. Every stitch within the quilt is a thank you.
We hope you've enjoyed this special tribute to Tennessee's Vietnam veterans. We want to thank Honor Air Knoxville for including us on Flight 24 so we could share those stories with you. I'm Vicki Lawson. See you on the next Tennessee Life.
Tennessee Life is sponsored by
Mid-South Sewing and Fabric has what you need for your creative adventure. If it's sewing, embroidery, or vinyl projects you need for a home business, Etsy, Pinterest, and your family, we have it. Mid-South Sewing sells Brothers Sewing and Embroidery machines and the latest scan and cut crafting machine. Mid-South Sewing and Fabric in the Gallery Shopping Center.
Tennessee Life is also brought to you by Next to New, an upscale consignment shop serving Knoxville. nexttonewknox.com, and by The Flower Pot for over 100 years, offering flowers and same-day delivery with 2 convenient Knoxville locations, knoxvilleflowerpot.com, and by viewers like you. Thank you. A DVD of this program is available by visiting easttennesseepbs.org.